Hello there, and welcome to our session, Project Firefly, the way to build cloud-native Adobe apps that extend Adobe Enterprise solutions. First, let me introduce our team. We have a distributed team. Fahd from Austin, Texas, is a senior manager on the Adobe Commerce Data Services. Then we have Kanika from Lehigh, Utah. She's a product manager on the IO Extensibility team. Then we have Meryll from France, an engineering manager on the same team. And my name is Mihai. I'm running the product management group for IO Extensibility. IO Extensibility essentially is building the serverless and events platforms and Project Firefly. Our session is about a developer framework called Project Firefly that helps with building cloud-native apps that extend or integrate with Adobe solutions. We will cover both the theoretical aspect and also show it in action. So I hope you guys are going to enjoy it. But first, let's see why did we create Project Firefly in the first place. In the past, enterprise extensibility was all about APIs and events, and then some servers to execute things like the application code, run the Java web container, maybe run some databases, and so on. From this model, there was a slow transition to public cloud services. If you remember 5, 6, 7 years ago, many enterprises were saying that, no, we cannot use AWS, we want to use everything on-prem. That has changed. And now more and more enterprises decided actually to use managed services for infrastructure, for things like databases, Kafka queue lines, and so on and so forth. As for how the custom code is being executed, today, most of the times people are using serverless and Docker containers. However, building cloud-native apps brings an entire new level of complexity. This is why more and more enterprises are looking actually for the complete package. Of course, running on cloud, the custom code and managed services, but also a complete framework with tools, libraries, and processes that take an app all the way from an idea to have it deployed in production. And this is exactly what Project Firefly is, a complete framework for cloud-native apps built for enterprise developers. It is part of the Adobe Experience Cloud, the Cloud Extensibility Charter. And our bet is quite simple. If you are to extend or integrate with Adobe solutions, then Project Firefly is the fastest way. It offers a consistent way of extending Adobe solutions, so you can reuse the same skills you learned from, solution A, let's say Magento, to extend solution B, let's say Adobe Analytics or Adobe Experience Platform. And at the end of the day, we want to enable a developer to be able to create the first iteration of a new application in a matter of minutes instead of days. Project Firefly is right now in developer preview and open to any enterprise customer or enterprise partner. Firefly targets enterprise developers that are working either for a system integrator or they are in-house enterprise developers for a customer, in-house developers. And we solve today business to employee use cases. In the future, we will extend Firefly to support ISV use cases and also business to consumer or business to business use cases. Now, let's quickly cover the big pieces behind Project Firefly. First, Firefly is based on Jamstack. A developer can use it either to create a headless app, think about deploying and creating some complex microservices, or a full single page application. Second, all you need is in the box. You have React Spectrum as the UI toolkit. You have a CLI and SDKs to make it easy to get started with a new project or consume Adobe APIs and Adobe events. You have a serverless platform for executing the custom code and services for managing things like application storage, files and key value, CI/CD pipelines, or a CDN for the static assets when creating single page apps. However, you can bring in your own tools if you want. For example, we have customers who didn't want to use React as the UI toolkit and they decided to use some other framework. That's fine. Third, we are building this as open source projects. Others can contribute. And we have seen this already. A partner created an SDK for working with the Adobe Experience platform and contributed this SDK to Project Firefly. So now everybody can leverage it. And lastly, the application is entirely executed on our infrastructure. It is managed and discovered the same way customers manage Adobe apps. So let me actually give you a bit more details about this. All Firefly apps are being published on the experience.adobe.com in the context of the enterprise who owns them. We will enable marketplace flows later where a third party publishes an app and another one can acquire it. Today, just to make it clear, this is not possible. The app that it's published, it's owned by the same party that created essentially. And with that, I want to highlight another aspect which we think it's really important. Business users get access to these Firefly apps by having their system administrators managing them. So a system administrator decides what Firefly apps are being published for their org and what business users get access to each Firefly app. And you can see here a screen. Let's say I'm logged into this screen, and then I get to see 2, 4, 5, I don't know, 7, 8 Firefly apps. I get to see these Firefly apps because my system administrator decided that Mihai has access to these ones. Another important aspect is that from an end user perspective, from the business employee perspective, there is less fatigue because as they move, let's say, between Adobe first-party apps and these custom apps, they do so within the same UI framework because all of these apps can be built with React Spectrum and within the same destination, if you want, experience.adobe.com, which means they can leverage the same accounts, the same user and password. They don't have to remember different systems. If I need to use that business app that extends Magento for whatever reason, I need to go to that internal system. If I need to use maybe some Adobe Analytics custom dashboard, I need to go to some other third-party systems. All these apps actually live side by side in the same space. And with that, I really want to hand it over to Fahd, who can cover more about the extensibility use cases between Firefly and Magento. Fahd?
Thank you, Mihai. I hope everybody can hear me nice and clear. As we all know, extensibility is baked in the DNA of Magento. Commerce in general has innumerable extensibility scenarios. A lot of you are very familiar with these use cases that I'm going to bring up, but my point is just to draw your attention to some of them just to set the context for Kanika's and Meryll's demo of Project Firefly. So for example, to add value to every step of the customer journey, you would probably want to have a strategy for abandoned cart. This is where the process sends an event for a cart and a service looks at the age of product in a cart to then qualify it as abandoned, at which point the merchant's custom code can kick in and dictate what to do next. This can come in the form of a discount code or simply an email reminder. There are definitely more creative ways there to drive conversion. Along the same lines, we have other common use cases, such as that of campaigns or subscription. This is where you may want to watch for browser events and take actions for a new product launch, or watch registry events for subscription. Again, for some merchants, it is imperative to be able to integrate with different shipping carrier. So for example, you may want to aggregate multiple shipping rates, retrieve shipping tracking history, and generate shipping labels. Meryll and Kanika are going to give us a demo regarding this business use case. And of course, there are many, many more, such as payment providers and what have you. Next slide, please. Now, going back to my earlier point, that it's no revelation that Magento is very extensible. The thing we need to keep in mind is the overall total cost of ownership with these customizations, which includes maintenance and cost of upgrades. Out-of-process asynchronous extensibility really helps in this regard. Magento today already provides you a mechanism of events and observers. A rudimentary base architecture would probably look something like this that I have on my screen, where you left-hand side pumping in events into various topics, and on the other side, you have observers that watch these events and take appropriate actions. Meryll and Kanika will now go through how you can use Project Firefly to create these microservices. And with that, I'll hand over to Kanika.
Thank you, Fahd. So as Fahd mentioned, what we're going to show you is an end-to-end process of setting up a Firefly project in Developer Console, then end-to-end developer experience using the CLI, publishing and deploying the whole application, which will ultimately show up in the experience shell. And I hope you can see my screen fine. So I've logged into the console. That's the first step. For those of you who do not know, this is the Developer Console, where you log in with your Adobe ID, which is part of an enterprise org. This gives you actual access to all the tools as part of the enterprise organization, which would help you build applications and make extensibility, either through runtime, events, plugin IDs. Now you see, I have already logged in, and I'm going to go create a project. If you see, you can create an empty project or a project from a template. These are the list of already created projects over here in this Adobe IO Dev org. If you see on the right-hand corner, I'm logged in as a system administrator through the Adobe IO Dev Enterprise org. Now we'll start creating a project from template. If you see here, there's a project Firefly template, which is already increasing.
Kanika, can you hear me?
Yes.
You are not sharing the screen. I think you didn't click on the bottom icon.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is it? Yeah. Okay, I'll quickly.
Yeah. Now we can see it.
Perfect.
Go ahead.
I'll quickly walk through this again. So this is the Developer Console where I've already logged in. And this is where you start creating the projects. Right-hand side is the IO Dev org, and I'm logged in with the system administrator. I'm going to create a project from template, which is going to be based on the Firefly template. If you see, the app name is already auto-generated. I'm just going to choose a new one. And I'm creating a test live event over here. I'm giving the app name the same. There are two production workspaces, one production and one stage workspaces. These workspaces are already populated. You can add another workspace to accommodate your development needs. And that's really easy. You just click a plus icon, add workspace development name, and that's it. And a description if needed. Save it, save these configurations, and you will have another workspace that would be added to your project. If you see now, here we have three workspaces, one production, stage, and event workspace dev. You can create as many as you want. Workspaces are where you'll actually connect all those services. So just for demo purpose, what I've already done is I've already created an existing workspace here. And this is test Magento. And we've added services to the production. I'll show you how to add a service. Once we have created this workspace, we click on Add Service, and I'm going to add an API. To add an API, there are many available APIs that you would see. from the list of the available APIs here in the console. These may be based on whether your org is provisioned to have access to the API, based on whether you have a paid license or subscription. I'm going to choose Experience Platform API. With the new console, you would see generating the key pair is really easy. It's just with a click of a button, and a key pair is generated for the authentication. You click Next. You need to attach a product profile or access, which we say. I'm just going to give a system admin access over here and save the configured API. If you see your integration was successful, the console would display a message over here. And here is your workspace. And you can choose whichever workspace you want to add service to later. We have just added it over here in the dev workspace we created. After this is done, we'll walk through how the app is published. Once Meryll walks through us the whole developer experience, which is going through the CLI, deploying the app, and then we see how we publish it back to the console or the experience shell. Meryll, over to you.
Thank you, Kanika, and hi, everybody. Let me share my screen. Here it goes. So as Kanika just mentioned, I will act as an enterprise developer who just got assigned a new project by my org admin, who was Kanika, and who installed the Project Firefly AIO CLI, which is distributed through an NPM package. I'm going to start bootstrapping my application, and for that, let me just invoke that I will call my folder containing the application structure Adobe Dev Live. What's happening? Forgot any, but it's not a problem. What's happening? Sorry, I will share my browser. I get redirected to IMS as the CLI itself with the console API behind the scenes to get all the project relevant information. I got automatically logged in to IMS as this is probably cached within my browser, but if it's the first time you use it, you would have, of course, to enter your credentials, your organization credentials correctly. Now this is done, and I will go back to my term. What's happening here is that I get listed all the organizations to which I belong, so I can filter them, and I'm going to choose the one that Kanika was using, which was the Adobe IO Dev organization. Next step is that I can list all the projects that belong to this org, and because we have a lot, I'm also able to filter here. Kanika, can you remind me the name of the project you used? Was it test? Live test. Thank you.
Test Magento.
It was Magento?
Test Magento.
It's Magento.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it was in another org, but that's not a problem. Let me select something else. That's all right. I will pick up this one. And I will select the workspace test Magento that in fact got created. So this is now downloading all the project-specific configuration to my local machine, which is going to help me bootstrapping the project code base correctly. And the first thing I can see is a generator. So this is based on human generators for the one of you who know what this is about, but it helps to create this kind of interactive menus where I can select what will be the structure of my application. As Mihai mentioned before, the architecture of Project Firefly apps are following Jamstack. So for the API piece, usually you would go through runtime actions. For the UI, this would be an SPA that gets deployed into the Experience Cloud shell based on React Spectrum. And there are two other components that you can see. First of all, events, where as a developer, I would be able to publish custom events from my own custom event sources for later usage within my application, or CI/CD, as we are supporting out-of-the-box Github Actions and workflows to build and deploy the application on different workspaces that are part of my project Firefly, defined in the console. For today, I'm going to remove events, and I will keep actions, web assets, and CI/CD. And now, because Kanika selected two kinds of services within the workspace, I can see templates proposed for each of them. The first one is for the Experience Platform Real-Time Customer Profile API. The second one is something generic that I'm going to use for the demo, so I will pick up two. I pick these two templates. This will create two different runtime actions. I'm just entering default values, and the web application is getting bootstrapped. So I don't know if the audience is familiar with IO runtime, but you should know that we let developers create their, third-party developers create their runtime actions on top of Node.js kinds for the containers, so it requires JavaScript knowledge slightly. Here we are getting web application bootstrapped. So you can see that it will the React app, but also will come with various scripts for the backend, but also for test purpose, and we will go through that in a minute once the application is bootstrapped. And this is it. So let me go into my folder and open my VS Code. Here we are. I will open a new term inside VS Code. It will be very useful in a while. But let me just get you through a bit the structure of the application which got bootstrapped here. As mentioned before, we are proposing out-of-the-box Github Actions to help developers deploy their app in a CI/CD like way, so to say, on the various workspaces that have been defined within the project in the developer console. So there is most likely one GitHub action for the stage and one GitHub action for the prod workspace. Everything related to the custom workspace that Kanika created will be useful for me as a developer to build and deploy locally for obvious test purpose. Then we have an action folder which contains the source code bootstrapped for the two actions. And I will come back to that very soon because it's important. We have two folders, one where we show you how to implement unit tests for your actions with 100% coverage, and end-to-end tests for your actions too, once these ones have been deployed. And you can run these tests with the CLI too, which comes with a test command. Last but not least, the web source folder, we'll come back to that later, is all the front-end code. We have then various configuration files. What is relevant really for the demo, the .env that I will share because it contains all the secrets that have been downloaded for the app to be deployed and should not be committed to any source code versioning. The .aio contains every project-related metadata and will be helpful for developers to also add their application custom configuration. The manifest.yml is a declarative language in which I can basically define how my actions are getting configured and deployed there later on. So this is quite technical if you're not used to Project Firefly and IO runtime, but the whole thing gets bootstrapped for you. Unless you perform some further customizations, you should not have to deal with this manifest.yml. Finally, the whole application itself is defined within a package.json file, which is proper to the NPM world for the ones you know, and defines the dependencies which are required out of the box. You can see that the Project Firefly SDK itself is a dependency of the app. Coming back to the actions, I chose to bootstrap the customer profile one just to show you how the bootstrapped actions are wired to the SDK that we are developing and providing in open source repositories. Very important first statement, you can see that the SDK is required and comes with several components. The first one is core, that provides technical commodities for developers such as logging, error handling, networking, etc. But also higher level constructs like this customer profile, which is an API client to interact with the API. So we are doing several validations for you because we are integrating with IMS out of the box, and we want to make sure that the incoming requests are validated properly for developers to not worry about that. What is important is most likely the initialization of the API client here, where the specific secrets are passed to itself, and then the API call. You can see here, for instance, that the client is calling the getProfile function, which is an abstraction, in fact, on top of the very technical API endpoints provided by the customer real-time profile API. And this SDK has been contributed by one of our integration partners. Based on their experience on how we are using the API on the field, they came with the idea that this abstraction would be very beneficial for developers to avoid reinventing the wheel. We provide also code completion. So, sorry. I think I have a demo effect, but sorry, my screen is rolling up. You can see that you have the different API signatures and parameters provided. So as a developer, it's also very convenient to avoid going back and forth between repository README or API doc and your code. If I want to test the application locally, I'm using the AIO app run command. This command will do the following. It will deploy the runtime action. It will build and deploy the runtime actions to the runtime namespace corresponding to the space that I'm using, while the whole UI will be run locally on the local parcel server, with the goal to allow fast development and updates of the UI without having to redeploy to the CDN each time. So the actions are getting packaged and built right now. Meanwhile, while this is done, and I apologize in advance, I might have some connection issue, I wanted to emphasize the fact that the whole SDK and CLI are open sourced under Apache Software License 2.0. They are available in the Adobe Github organization as repositories. And first of all, this is to keep in touch with the community, make sure that they know what we are working on as next steps, also are able to provide feedback and or report issues if there are any. But also the goal behind is really to build a community and have more and more people contributing. So feel free to have a look at these repositories and why not contribute. So I am a bit sorry for to take a bit of time, most likely because of my connectivity. Meanwhile, I could also tell you about the CLI itself. The CLI architecture is plugin based, so we are able here to provide within the CLI itself several out-of-the-box plugins which are used for several use cases. You could see there is an app plugin which allows developers to interact with Project Firefly apps. There are some lower-level plugins that allow developers to interact directly with either the developer console, with Adobe IMS, with events, and so on, but also higher-level plugins that are built either by other Adobe teams or by external partners that allow to either Adobe or perform some project-specific operations. These plugins can be installed as custom plugins for local CLI installation. And in that sense, a developer can come with the basic set of core plugins, but also with a very custom setup. I see that someone is asking for the open source repository links. I'm happy to share that while the second action is deploying. We have two different main plugins. We have the Adobe CLI one, and we have the SDK one. And in each of them, you can see that there is a health table with everything that comes within the core. So it's very easy to jump from one repository to the other and make sure that you get access to the repository you are looking for. So this is for the CLI one. And for the SDK one, it's simply AIO. In total, we have something like between 40 and 50 open source repositories right now. And we are looking forward to expanding more, of course. So let me go back to my VS Code. This is still deploying. Hopefully we have time. If there is any other question meanwhile, I'm happy to take it. Feel free to report it to me. I can tell you a bit more about what I'm going to do afterwards. So as Fahd was mentioning, there are some use cases related to Magento that imply integration, for example, with shipment providers. And this is what I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you, based on this sample app that I'm deploying, how it could be modified in order to integrate with a third-party endpoint that could be, for example, a shipment provider one. The application got deployed. So let me just open it. What's really cool, it's deployed locally, but integrates out of the box with my production Adobe Experience Cloud shell. So this is nothing fake. This is a real shell that you see here in production. So you can see all my orgs being listed. You can see my solution switcher based on my config, my notifications. You can see my IMS profile. I'm able to interact with the local app as if I was in the production context. And this is the sample UI that we provide to developers. So it's a React Spectrum 3 based UI, which is also open sourced by Adobe and lets developers build experiences that look and feel like Adobe products and out-of-the-box experiences. Pretty convenient when you want to extend any product. It comes with a side nav with three different links or items. The first one is a simple title. The last one is holding a few links to the docs. I think what's really important to show you is the sample form that we have. So I'm able to select one of the two actions that got deployed, pass in some parameters if required, and invoke them. So I'm invoking the generic one right now. Oh, success. I can see the response content in my browser. So I would need to go here in the network and most likely look for the request and see the default object, which is returned. And I think this is not so great for a demo, so let me show you something else. I have here a sample shipment provider endpoint that I deployed myself as a runtime action because I wanted to have it pretty straightforward. But you can see that it's responding something that could look like the response sent from or by a shipment provider. So it has some information about the delivery package, dimensions, weight, reference ID, shipping label, and some Google Maps addresses. I will go back to my VS Code. I will first of all copy paste this, which will be important. Go back to my VS Code, and I will update the generic action. I will update it to this endpoint. Then what I am going to do is to modify the UI. You can see that the action is redeployed in a hot manner. I will, and let me just expand the React piece of the code, which is really here. I will go to the sidebar. And what I will do, I will just replace this out-of-the-box form with something else that I would call shipment. /shipment, which doesn't exist yet. And another advantage of doing the things like this locally, the UI gets refreshed at the same time. So you can see that the left nav has already been refreshed. Let me go back to code. Now I will go to the app.js, which is the main, really the main placeholder for the application front-end code. So as you guys might see if you're React experts, which I'm not personally, this is really where you have the routing, the application items, and where you have all the logic. What I'm going to do is replace here the route/shipment and call the object shipment2, and I think I will have to wait. I'm doing it properly. I know I could hack a lot more, but I want it to look like real. So I think this is good. I will rename this into shipment.js. Here, but I was telling you I'm not myself a React expert, so I prepared something earlier today, and I will copy paste the code. Basically, what we do is just a form to have it matching the shipment use case. Nothing big. If we had more time, I would redo it myself, I promise, but to keep it simple, I will just copy paste. Here it goes. So what I did, the form that you have here, which will invoke the underlying runtime action and will display a shipment. And I hope this is going to work because everything is real. The action should have been refreshed. Let me first of all, oh, the UI got modified. That's already cool. Then what I'm going to do is just look for a shipment ID. This is also looking really for the ones who already played with shipment IDs. And I will click on find it. It will call the new action. Oh, something went wrong. Aha, I knew it couldn't work so easily. Probably something went wrong with my backend action. I'm sorry for that. But you got it. So it should have called the shipment action display the results. Hopefully we have a version of it that has been deployed just before, and I will hand over to Kanika to show you how it looks like once the application has been deployed for real into the Experience Cloud shell.
Thank you, Meryl. So I'm going to share my screen again. Now you've seen Meryl has deployed the application. How do we publish this application that has been built and deployed? Remember, we built this test live event workspace and event workspace dev, where we actually added an API integration. We have to do a similar thing in production. Just for time's sake, I'll just skip that step. And I've already added a runtime action aware, which was done when the workspace was created. Now, once this is done, we want to actually submit this application for approval. You see it is in the production workspace, and it gives you a button for approval. When you click on submit for approval, this application actually starts or kickstarts the workflow for submission. And if you see, once this is loaded, it shows the status as in development. It gives me the project title and the app name. We add an app description, which I added here. We add a contact email. I just added my Adobe ID. And we select a file icon or an app icon, which I'm just choosing to be this one. I write a note to the approver. Because I'm an administrator, I would actually show you how can I approve or not approve this app. Once this is done, adding all the description, I click on the submit button. And now it's submitting the app for review. Once this is processed, the app workflow has been kicked for submission. You see, this would all gray out. Now we would go to Exchange. It is the Adobe's marketplace for all the applications we're building. And in Exchange, I have already navigated to my Exchange section. In my Exchange section, I would click on the same org which I'm in. If you see, I was here in the IO dev org, and I have refreshed and click over here again. Clicking on this, it gives me a list of the applications that are either pending review or that have already been reviewed. For the purpose of the demo, remember, I created, or we used demo from Magento, where Meryl actually deployed the application. If you see, the status of this one is already published. And when you go back to Exchange, demo from Magento, which was uploaded with an Apple icon, was a Magento test app, which was approved. Once it was approved, I also got an email notification like this because I added my approval email over there, which was Gera, and it sent me an email. After if you are a developer, you would send it to a system admin for approval. It's basically your Exchange is acting as a gatekeeper to decide which apps would be published and which not. For example, let's just pick up existing app. And if I want to click or review on this application for deciding whether I want to publish this app or not, I'm going to look into this flow where it gives me the action to either approve the app, reject an app, or just cancel. I can add the reviewers note and submit reject. Or I can add the reviewers note and approve it. Once this is approved, since this was already published, remember, we log into the Experience shell, which is experience.adobe.com. And you see, I'm still logged into the same IO dev org. And I see the Project Firefly apps icon over here. Clicking on this icon, it would actually load all the applications that have been approved and published. And this is the demo for Magento app, which we had already published before. I click on this app, which is now available in the Experience shell. And you see, it's the same app Meryl was demonstrating a few minutes back. With this, we end our demo. I hope you enjoyed the demo. We are still in the developer preview, and we would encourage everybody to apply for the developer preview. We also have a support forum where we can help support all the question and answers. And you can learn more about Project Firefly from our documentation references, which Mihai has shared in the chat panel. We also have other enablement assets like videos, code labs, which would give you a step-by-step process on how to create these applications from the scratch and publish it into the Experience shell. We also have some demo apps to navigate through. With this, I'll stop sharing and I'll open it up for Q&A.
I would just like to say something. Sorry for interrupting Kanika and Mihai, because I don't like when demos don't end up correctly. And I just had to refresh my browser, in fact. I would just like to share this, if you don't mind.
Not at all. Vive la France.
Because, exactly. Thank you, Mihai. And clicking on it, this is what you should have seen just before. So the action gets called, and you can see the various metadata coming back. If I had been in a real development sequence, what would have been really great would have been that looking at the code, I just set up a breakpoint, and I just, run a debugger. This is something that you would expect from every development platform, right? That you're able to debug your code. And this is something I'm very happy to show you. It's one of the contributions from the larger team, including some Adobe product engineering teams contributing to Project Firefly. This is a debugger which allows developer to debug actions that are deployed to runtime or actions that are deployed to a local OpenWhisk, which is the open source platform behind IO runtime. So here, my action is deployed to runtime itself, and I'm still able to debug it from my local development machine. Let me just show you by going here and clicking on the button what is going to happen. Blocked because debugger is intercepting the thing. Let's just give it a while. You see some things are happening, and I'm in my code. So if I had done it before, I would have seen that probably I'm not able to reach this place in the code because I should have refreshed my front end. And of course, I can scroll down, debug the API call, and get content out of the response from the API. And what this big plugin like this, something that's deployed to the namespace and integrated within IMS, I'm also able to see on my local machine the whole live context from the deployed application. And if you look, for example, at the token itself, you can see my IMS token right in front of my eyes that I can debug further, or use to debug further, sorry. I can also have a look at the content itself, and you see that this is the response that I am playing within the front end. That is worth trying out when you deploy applications and still want to see what's happening in the backend. Thank you for letting me 2 more minutes for that. I will stop sharing now.
Thank you, Meryll. So we still have time for questions, I believe. While we are waiting, maybe for some questions to pop in, maybe we can recap the main points. So Project Firefly, it's an enterprise developer offering. It's in the developer preview right now. It's available to enterprise developers. You can apply. Jonathan was making fun of the long URLs. You have to remember adobe.io. You just go there, you look for Project Firefly, and then we have a pretty awesome documentation that can guide you through everything you need to do in order to get access to it, to find the next office hours or webinars we are holding to explain more and show use cases, videos, code labs, all the great resources we have. We also have a developer forum as a way to provide help to Firefly developers. Lots of questions already are answered on that forum. It's pretty active. So again, you'll find the link. So continuing, the developer preview started about 3 or 4 months ago. We have more than 100 customers and partners who applied for getting access to it. We are solving today business to employee use cases, and you can create a full application, a full web application, or you can create a microservice type of an app. In the future, most likely next year, we are going to focus also on the business to consumer and business to business use cases. And we are going to look at how we can enable kind of the ISV use case, where an app is being published on Adobe Exchange by some party, and then some other customers or enterprises can acquire that app and install that app and use it. The app is built on well-known patterns, Jamstack. We try not to reinvent the wheel, so we are leveraging what the modern web developer community has been building in the past 3-4 years. And it's open source. You can extend it, you can contribute, and you can also change the stack we are offering you. As you get better and better and you push the envelope, we've built the whole stack in a way that you can replace the tools we are offering out of the box with whatever you want to use on your end. And I think this is it. Any other questions? Nope. I don't know, Meryll, Kanika, Fahd, if you want to add anything. If not, I guess we are handed over back to Sherry.